And let me give you the history. In 1994, the New York Fed and the Federal Reserve bought shares in the Bank of International Settlements. The Bank of International Settlements is the central bank of central banks in Switzerland, and operates above the law. They have sovereign immunity and enjoy it in many respects. And they can receive and hold money secretly. They can keep money on their balance sheet secretly. So the Fed bought shares and made their relationship with the BIS much closer in 1994. In 1995, a budget deal basically crashed and burned in October. And it was then that one of the largest pension funds, or the president of the largest pension fund in the country, said to me, they, whoever they is, have given up on the country and moving all the money out starting in the fall. And it was that fall, October 1997, when money started to go missing from HUD as well as the Department of Defense. As of today, there's $20 trillion between 1998 and 2015 missing from DOD, and $1 trillion missing from HUD. The other thing that started to happen when that money started to go missing, Polly, was what I call the Great Poisoning. So literally, it was the next month after the budget deal crashed that OxyContin was approved, and the HUD predatory lending started, and the pill mill started, and really the targeting of the low-income neighborhood started, including the roundups coming from the private prison movement. And so undocumentable adjustments then skyrocket. Coming into 9/11, we had been working with a reporter in Washington who was writing story after story about the missing money, and we had a huge spread coming out in Insight magazine, the cover story going to all the congressional and Senate offices talking about what was then 3.3 trillion missing and demanding accountability, including who were the private corporations and banks running all those payment systems. And we expected that story. It was going to be run on September 15th, 2001. That Monday, so the day before 9/11, Donald Rumsfeld gave a press conference at the Department of Defense. You can see the video up at the Missing Money website at Solari. And he announced that the Department of Defense was missing $2.3 trillion. And we assumed he was trying to get ahead of our story. Well, we know that wasn't true. The next day, 9/11 happened. James Corbett has a wonderful video called 9/11 Trillions, where he describes how many of the offices that were blown up at the Pentagon and the World Trade Center related to securities and other financial operations, very much connected to the money that was disappearing. In fact, we were told that the office at the Pentagon that was blown up, or one of the offices, was the location for the Office of Naval Intelligence Research Group that was investigating the missing money. And so the rest is history. The Patriot Act had passed, and then the DOD got huge appropriations, and nobody really cared about the missing money. So let me go back to the chronology again. So fast forward, Carolyn and I kept tracking the missing money and kept tracking and tracking. And then in 2015, the financials came out, and it was the greatest missing money in 1 year. The DOD was missing 6.5 trillion in a year. And I started to talk about it publicly. You know, I kept talking about it, but needless to say, nobody was really picking up on it after James Corbett made that great video. And so Dr. Mark Skidmore, who was a professor, expert in budgeting at Michigan State University, heard me, and he said, oh, wow, she must be wrong. It can't possibly, the Department of Defense can't be missing, 10 plus times its total budget in a year. And so he went to the financials on the DOD website and discovered, actually, I was right. There was 6.5 trillion of undocumentable adjustments at the Army and the Department of Defense. And so he called me and he said, is there anything I can do to help? And I said, yes, we've never done a complete survey of all the financial statements in all the years from fiscal 1997 to 2015. Would you get some of your students and do a complete survey? And sure enough, he did. And to his shock and amazement, I had the number up to 12 trillion. He got it to 21 trillion. And interestingly enough, Polly, when he published his big report in 2017, again up at missingmoney.solari.com, what did we discover? We discovered that the amount of money missing from the U.S. Treasury was the same amount as the total debt of the United States. On the books of the United States, when Dr. Skidmore published that report, there's $21 trillion missing from the US government, and there was $21 trillion of outstanding debt. And I'll explain why that's important in a second. A lot of pressure was brought on the Department of Defense to produce audited financial statements. Once again, they refused. And when they refused, remember the Kavanaugh hearings? Do you remember, Polly?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
I'm here.
During the Kavanaugh hearings, the Senate, the House, Republican and Democrats, and the Trump White House got together and issued a policy called Federal Accounting Standards Advisory Board Statement 56. I refer to it in short as FASB 56. We have a great article that describes this in detail. Maybe if you could bring that up, Lou, FASB 56. There we go. You can find that at the Missing Money and in the links for the show. And what FASB 56 says, very short and simple, is basically the government can keep secret books as a matter of administrative policy, thus refusing to obey all the financial management rules and regulations and laws, including the constitutional provisions for disclosure of financial operations. They extended it, along with the classification laws, to private companies and banks doing business with the federal government, which means when you look at the U.S. securities market, the large cap section of the U.S. market, you know, most of the disclosure is meaningless. You have no idea how the money works at many of these companies and the government because they're so intertwined. That was an astonishing event. And in my opinion, Polly, the COVID-19 operation could never have happened without that, because it put the Department of Defense and some of the agencies in a position to essentially access an unlimited amount of secret money. So, you know, somebody once told me it was a wet dream, secret money for secret operations. And if you look at the money that flowed out, it was interesting. It was, I think, 1 month after FASB 56 passed that suddenly Moderna magically raised $500 million. Quite a coincidence.
Can I just comment